Noxus Reroll is and has been the #1 most dominant comp in all of Set 9 so far. My average with this comp is 2.8 with over 50 games played, and I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to start dunking with Darius. First, let's talk about the comp without any emblems. At level 6, play all 6 Noxus units. At level 7, play all 6 Noxus units plus 1 Juggernaut. This can be Set, Warwick, or Nasus. Even though Garen is a 3-cost Juggernaut, his ability is so useless we never want to play him in this comp. Stay at level 7 to slow roll for Darius 3 and Katarina 3. Do not waste gold on 3-starring anything other than Darius or Katarina, it's not worth it, and also don't go level 8 until at least Darius 3. At level 8, play either Heimer with double Shrinko plus Mechano, or any strong 2-star 4-cost, including Yasuo, Jarvan, Shen, Azir, or you can play Ahri with a mana item, or Ryze if the ability is good, or any rogue if her Katarina needs it. Eventually replace the Juggernaut with Aatrox for the Darken buff, and replace Kled or Cassiopeia with Scion. Let's talk about how to play with an emblem. With a Noxus emblem, we have multiple options. Usually we drop Kled since he is the weakest Noxus unit, and we can put the Noxus emblem on Echo, in which case you can play for Echo 3, or put the emblem on an upgraded 4-cost. You can play Nasus and Azir at level 7 for 3 Shurima, with Noxus Spat on Azir. You can keep Kled and drop Cassio for Noxus Slayer Gwen. You can play Noxus Yasuo if you upgrade him. You can slam Noxus Spat on Set or Warwick early for tempo. It all depends on what you hit and when. With a Juggernaut emblem, you want to put Juggernaut on Swain or Katarina, whichever has better items to keep them alive, and then add an extra Juggernaut at level 8 for 4 Jug. Keep in mind that emblems are really not that important for Noxus Reroll. The comp works just fine without any emblems, and most of the time it's better to take a combat augment instead. The best legend for this comp is Ornn. This is for 2 reasons. The first reason is because certain Ornn items are very good for our carries, which I will get into shortly when I cover items. The second reason is because Ornn's 3-2 and 4-2 augments guarantee extra anvils, which are extremely helpful for hitting 3 good items on both Darius and Katarina as soon as possible. Let's talk about items. So the first items to prioritize are going to be Darius items. He is the main carry for this comp. Darius's most important item is always a healing item. Death Defiance is overall best. Hodge is great with IE or Jeweled Lotus for crit value. BT is otherwise better than Hodge, especially against AP. 20 MR is a lot. And only build Gunblade if you absolutely have to. Darius's second most important item is always a damage multiplier. This is because Noxus gives base AD and AP, so we benefit from a multiplier more than raw stats. IE is overall best, however GS and Guardbreaker can give more damage depending on matchup. For example, GS is better into 6 Bruiser Rek'Sai, and Guardbreaker is better into Shen, Taric, Sejuani frontline, especially if we have Jeweled Lotus for crit value. Darius's final item should give raw stats to multiply with our second item. The best options are Infinity Force or Titans since they give tank stats as well, but Deathblade is also good. Now it would be nice to fit Last Whisper on Darius to get through tanks, but we would lose too much damage by giving up a multiplier or raw stat item, so the better option is actually to put Last Whisper on Samira and always position her same side as Darius. We can do this with Black Cleaver as well, which even helps Katarina burst a target. Quick side note, do not make the mistake of having 2 healing items on Darius. It's not worth giving up damage, we need him to one-shot. Our duo carry for this comp is Katarina, so we should get her 3 good items as well. Katarina's first item should be healing. Hodge is by far the best since it gives us AP, and the crit chance will be useful for Jeweled Lotus, Jewel Gauntlet or IE. Gunblade is second best, followed by BT or Death Defiance if it's our last option. Katarina's second item should be a damage multiplier. JG being the best, GS Guardbreaker being good depending on matchup, and IE if we have to. Katarina's third item doesn't matter too much. An extra Hodge or Gunblade for more healing is good. DFG or Zhonya's is good. Deathcap, Archangels, or Titans is good. Sometimes even a tank item is good, for example Bramble against IE Aphelios, or IE Akshan is very good. If we don't have a Darius item in our Ornn Anvil, Blacksmith Gloves is a good option for Katarina, since she can use a lot of Ornn items for damage, healing, tanking, and supporting. Similar to Darius and Last Whisper, Spark would be nice on Katarina, but it's better to just put Spark on Swain and position Cat next to Swain every fight. The Spark is mostly for bursting frontline tanks anyway, and Cat would benefit a lot more from an extra item. After Darius and Cat items are completed, or if we must slam, put tank items on Swain, Gargoyles being the best option, Eternal Winter being the only good Ornn item, and any other tank item is acceptable. Zeke's is good for this comp to buff both Darius and Katarina. We can put Zeke's on either Kled or our second Juggernaut depending on which is upgraded first for tempo, but late game we want to aim for one or more Zeke's on Aatrox to give him the AD, HP and attack speed. Chalice is also decent but not as good as Zeke's. Finally, Randuin should be put on our second Juggernaut unit, which I will explain later when I talk about positioning. Okay, let's talk about augments. There are some very powerful augments that give way more value than Ornn's tailored augments we should look out for. First, I will go over the S tier augments for Noxus Reroll and how to play around them. Long distance powers. Connect Darius and Katarina always, positioning I'll cover later in the video. Jeweled Lotus 1, 2 or 3. Jeweled Lotus 1 is still good on IE Darius since it gives us guaranteed crits for a silver augment, but don't go Jeweled Lotus 2 or Jeweled Lotus 3 with IE. At that point, some other combat augment is better. To choose which unit is strongest for Jeweled Lotus 1, it's the unit with the most items. For Tiebreaker, it's whichever is last fielded, so you can swap between Katarina and Darius depending on the situation. Golden Ticket. This is best on 2-1 because you can afford to roll a bit during stage 2 for pushing win streak, especially if you have pairs. Think fast. On 3-2 or 4-2 it's amazing. Make sure you don't waste gold or time trying to 3-star anything but Darius or Katarina. Next are all the good generic combat augments. Unified Resistance, Healing Orbs, Know Your Enemy, Contagion, Gifts from the Fallen, Indomitable Will, Cybernetic Leech, tons of stats, Total Domination. The rest of the good augments give items or units. Idealism, You Have My Sword, You Have My Bow, Component Buffet, Buried Treasures, Noxus Crest, Noxus Crown, Army Building. Positioning is extremely important for this comp, so we need to scout before every fight late game to make sure our Darius can do the best job at pushing through the front line and getting backline access as soon as possible. First, let's talk about the default position. The first thing about default position is we want Darius on the edge so that he can wrap around to the backline as soon as possible. And then we want to position Swain in the middle and Kled next to Swain so that Swain and Kled both take some of the aggro from the opposite side. Then Katarina and Set go next to Darius to help him kill whichever target Darius is going to attack. And especially Set, he has CC, so if Set can CC the unit, it will make it easier for Darius to kill the unit before they cast their ability. For the same reason, we put Samira and Cassiopeia on the same side as Darius, so they can also help him burst down whatever tank is in Darius's way. And with this position, all we want to do is swap sides depending on our opponent's position. So if we see that our opponent is playing Lux, which is a very bursty unit, we don't want Lux to target our Darius at the start, so we would position our Darius on the opposite side as Lux. If we see the Lux on one side, we put Darius on the other. However, if the carry is something that charges up with the Guinsoo's, for example Zeri, so if they have a Zeri with Guinsoo's, then we want to position Darius on the same side as Zeri, because Darius is going to be tanky enough to not die early against Zeri's attacks, and we really need Darius to make his way and kill the Zeri before the Zeri gets too many stacks on Guinsoo's. You can also drop Darius back a Hex if he's not tanky enough to survive early, so we can put our tankiest unit in front of him and still have Darius on the same side as the carry. If we have Zeke's or Randuin's, we want to put that on any strong unit in between Darius and Katarina, and we can also put our extra tanks behind that unit to get more Randuin's value. If we have Nasus as our Juggernaut, then we actually don't want to put him next to Darius, since he's a tank and doesn't have CC. We want to put him next to Swain instead, and that way Kled, who has some damage, can actually help us kill whatever tank is in Darius's way. If we have long distance pals, we just want to put Darius on the edge hex as usual and have Katarina somewhere on the opposite side of the board, just back a few hexes. When we have Zephyr, we want to position like this with the Darius on the second hex from the left side, because if Jarvan gets Zephyr'd, the Darius is actually going to walk up to the edge, not the Kled, and the Kled will walk backwards, and that way our Darius can make his way to the backline very quickly. To position against Akshan, we want Darius on the opposite side to Akshan. That way Darius doesn't walk in front of Akshan's bullets, and we can move Cassio and Samira over a hex just to make sure that Darius never gets in the way of Akshan's ultimate. Final thing I want to say about this comp is in the Hearthhome portal, which gives us a Radiant item, we want to make our damage multiplier the radiant item instead of the raw damage item or the healing item. This is because Darius has so much raw AD that any extra multiplier is very valuable. And that is it for this guide. If you have any more questions about how to play Noxus Reroll, please feel free to leave a comment. And also leave a comment about what comp you want to see me make a guide for next. If the video was helpful, leave a like, and if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe. I'll be uploading at least one video a week.